In today's episode of Getting Geeky with Game Leaf, I sit down with Dustin from Board Gaming with Education, the podcast. Then we'll see what's on Kickstarter.
Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Welcome to Getting Geeky with Game Relief. Today I'm joined by the guest of the podcast, formerly known as Board Gaming with English. You might know it as Board Gaming with Education now, but is that right, Dustin? Is that how you fall in line? Are you the mastermind behind Board Gaming with Education who once had a different name?
Yes, I am the host. Now, it was a co-host. We hosted together with my friend Rich, and now it's just me and a lot of other guests, and we have some regular guests as well. But I'm really excited to be back on your show again.
Yeah, it's been a little minute, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a little bit, but it's always fun to be on the show.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming back on. Now, maybe were you doing board gaming educate with education when we were on last? When you were on last, I don't remember.
I think at that time it was board gaming with English. I think I was getting ready to switch over, or maybe not quite sure if we were switching over yet. I think maybe I just found out my co-host was moving back to the States.
Okay, so maybe you can tell us about the switch. So, how did that go down and why, Dustin?
So originally we were an English language podcast and we created episodes for English learners and also English teachers. So anyone that was learning English could tune into the episode, listen to one of the episodes and learn how to play a board game, learn the vocabulary from the game and learn some of the grammar structures. And you can still go back to the first 4 seasons. We covered about a dozen different board games. So if you are learning English, you can check that out. If you are an English teacher, you can use those episodes to supplement your instruction. But now we've kind of moved on from season 5 onward, and we're focusing on board gaming with education in its general capacity and focus on different content areas. Because we found a lot of our listeners were not just English learners or English teachers, but educators in various fields. We even had some board game hobbyists tune in. I think you found our podcast at one point. So we kind of branched out into a more general education.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been following it from, I don't know, about day one. As soon as I heard about it, I think you were, what is it, a Night to Nave or something on Tuesday night podcast is how I initially heard about it.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that part of their show, how you can submit in an audio clip and they'll play it on, because their show does something really cool where that's all about the experiences. And I think that's what board games are all about too when we play with our family and friends, shared experiences.
And I guess even classrooms now, huh?
Yeah, and that's actually one thing that I recently went to a conference, an English language conference, but the keynote speaker talked about more educational psychology and engaging students. And it's a big push recently in educational psychology to create a learning experience for our students instead of just I guess just like a providing content that they need to digest, but more an experience in the classroom to engage and motivate our students.
Awesome. It makes sense, but like a lot of times when I hear in the board game industry from just posts I see on Facebook and whatnot, a lot of people tend to frown down, or they don't necessarily like educational games. Have you seen that? Or
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I'm actually in the process of editing our geek discussion episode where we answer the question: Are educational games fun? And I think it comes down to how you define an educational game, because a lot of the hobby games that are not intended to be used specifically for educational purposes can be fun, but I mean, I would almost classify that as an educational game because you're using the game to teach something. They break down games in the classroom in 3 different ways, where either maybe you create an educational game with the specific purpose of teaching something, or you use like a hobby game and bring that into the classroom and adapt it, or you can use gamification where you just add gaming elements onto your current curriculum or lesson.
Cool, yeah, and then our home or whatnot, we like strategy games, and I think I've heard my wife say on numerous occasions that being able to play strategy games, it helps you learn new ways to think or think outside the box, maybe.
Right. Yeah, it gives you that problem solving skills, and a lot of strategy games are great if they involve some cooperation too. Strategy against the against the game, like Pandemic Legacy.
Oh boy, we're not much for co-ops, but yeah, they're good too. And you talked about gamification. You touched briefly upon that. Uh, and word on the street is you're doing something in that realm with your whole education and just in the classroom, especially with your wife that's on the show with you sometimes. Is that right?
Yeah. So my wife last quarter, Grace, we went to her classroom and used a gamification kit. Gamification actually, it's kind of interesting because I think it has sometimes a negative connotation in education because it's not always applied the most appropriate, and sometimes can hinder learning instead of help learning. And I think a lot of times people view gamification as a corporate term that a lot of companies use to engage either or to motivate their employers or engage their community. And it's not something that is always applied best to education. But one thing that gamification can do well in education is highlight some of the elements in gamification, like cooperation and motivation and reinforcing positive behavior. So that's kind of what this kit is built on, are those three elements of reinforcing positive behaviors through extrinsic rewards like earning experience points, encouraging class engagement. So students are able to participate in RPG stories. They also go on side quests to encourage additional like lesson practice. Maybe you're going over math and you go from multiplication to division, but some students still need to work on those multiplication skills. Well, you can offer side quests to those students to go back to the multiplication and practice those skills. It also develops class culture where students go on these RPG adventures and they create stories. So it taps into that creativity spirit that a lot of younger kids have. They come up with some really cool ways to solve problems in the story.
Awesome. And how did it benefit you and Grace in her classroom this year or semester as opposed to when you guys were doing it before without the gamification or the RPG?
So I would say the number one thing, and you can go listen to. We have 4 episodes that we talk about her experience using it, and we really look at like the challenges of using it as well, not just the benefits. And the number one thing I would say, I mean, you might ask Grace, maybe it'd be a different story, but she really developed a really strong relationship with her students. And I think the gamification and doing these RPG stories was one of the major factors for that. I mean, Grace, she's a pretty likable teacher, I think generally, but I think the game kind of helped to maybe enhance that relationship that they have. And it also helped with motivating students to encourage collaboration and helping their classmates as well.
Yeah, did they become involved more as opposed to before without the gamification?
Yeah, so I think the RPG story is great because not only are they creating this story and figuring out how to solve the problem of the story, they also are incorporating a learning objective into the story. So, one example of one of the adventures they went on during class, and these adventures aren't very long. The actual adventure is maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and then you have a built in activity that's maybe a little bit longer depending on how big of the activity you make it. So, one of the adventures, my wife and their students, they ended up on this deserted island. And on the island, they just had a water bottle, an empty glass bottle, a pen, and a paper. And because they're a writing course and she was teaching introductory paragraphs, she asked all the students, okay, well, we need to send out a message in this bottle so someone can come rescue us. So they all had to write an introductory paragraph. They'd include the hook, the background information, and their thesis statement. And then they all had to defend their paragraph and decide which paragraph to send into the bottle. So it's really cool because it creates this element where you send out that introductory paragraph, and then next week when the story continues, they use that my wife used that paragraph to just reference some parts from the paragraph when the knights came to rescue them. So it creates a cool part into the story where it's carrying over, and they actually have an influence on how the story plays out from week to week.
Awesome. Now, is that something you do once a week, or how does it go play into the rest of the classroom experience, I guess?
Yeah, I would say so. One thing with this kit, it's not like very I don't know, I don't want to say clear, but it's not very you have to do it this way. You can choose as a teacher or as maybe a mentor, if you're using this in after school program or at home, what parts of it you want to use and how often you want to apply certain elements of the kit. There are some recommendations and some reasonings for why you might do it a particular way. For example, the RPG story, you don't want to do it like twice a semester. That's not enough to involve the students in the story. They easily could forget the story. They won't be invested in their characters. So we recommend doing it about once a week. You can maybe do it every other week, but you want to do it enough to have students feel an investment in their characters, an investment in their party as a classroom going on this RPG adventure, because that carries over to the larger class culture.
Yeah, from listening to your podcast, you guys' podcast about it, if I recall correctly, like after a couple weeks or whatnot, your students were like, what I think it was on Thursday or whatnot, but they were like, they were always wondered if it was game day or whatnot.
Yeah, my wife's doing it again this quarter, and I'm hoping we can talk about it on the podcast. And every week, the students look forward to that RPG Adventure Day. And I mean, it's only like she only does the story for like 10-15 minutes, and it's a language class. So I think with language classes, it's really cool because you can really do anything to practice language input and output. But she's doing it this quarter, and she's gotten a little busy this quarter because she had to finish the yearbook. So she's had to put off the RPG venture. She's like, "Oh, we'll do it tomorrow," and then she had to wait and then do it the next day because it does take some preparation if you don't have the stories ready to go already. And that's what we are providing with the kit as well. We're creating 4 themes with 4 different storylines. So in my wife's class, they use an ITD, which is an interdimensional travel device. So with this device, she can really jump from theme to universe to timeline. They can just really jump around, and she's not restricted to one theme. With the kit, you can also use this and go from theme to theme, or you can just stick to the one theme.
Awesome. And you guys are still in play testing, or where are you at in the process, Dustin?
Yeah, we're still playtesting and finalizing the teacher handbook. We have a solid teacher handbook, but we're going to add some extra elements based on some feedback. We might add in some tips based on feedback from teachers. We used it this last quarter in my wife's class. She's using it again this quarter. Um, and there are 30 teachers now currently using it this spring and summer, and then we'll reach out to another round of playtesters this summer for any teachers maybe teaching summer school programs or after school programs or anything along those lines.
Awesome. And have you heard anything on how it can be used in non-English classrooms?
Yeah, so that's something also we are adding to the teacher handbook, recommendations to implement learning objectives into the RPG stories. So like that bottle element, you could use it as a math problem. Maybe you have students solve a math problem that creates a message that they send out to get help, or maybe it's a science. I'm not as familiar with science content, but maybe like a chemistry problem, and they have to solve the equation to come up with that specific chemical compound that helps them get rescued on the island. So we have some suggestions to implement language or learning objectives into the RPG stories.
Awesome. And so it sounds like there's going to be, like you said, four preset adventures or whatnot. Is there certain mechanics, like in regular games I know about, they have like gaming mechanics and stuff. Is that something employed in this as well?
Right. Yeah. So it's very simple because we wanted to keep it simple for any teacher that maybe does not have a lot of experience doing RPGs or using board games. And the one mechanic is just in the RPG world, it's called a difficulty check. So with that, they just have to beat the teacher, and that could be by rolling a dice, playing rock paper scissors, picking an even or odd number, and if they beat the teacher, they succeed in whatever they plan to do. And it's up to the teacher to really decide if it requires a difficulty check. Like if you are moving a boulder and maybe the character's like very strong, the teacher can allow that to happen. But if the character's kind of weak, they might ask them to roll a difficulty check.
Well, that's kind of cool. I kind of get intimidated by it. I listened to a podcast called the Glass Cannon podcast a while back ago, and I think they played Pathfinder, and they were always rolling the dice, but then they were adding all these modifications or numbers to it. So that's kind of cool that the teacher can decide that, and not necessarily even have to be dice. So that's cool.
Right. Yeah, I think that's definitely one thing we had to do because it's you don't want to take away from the class time too. And I think I enjoy that crunchy part of RPGs. That's why I know Gloomhaven. I think that's one reason I really enjoy that because it still has the story element, but there's a lot of like strategy and numbers in the game.
Okay, so yeah, because that's on our shelf of opportunity. But on that game, so there's a lot of stuff you can do besides just following what the cards say or what the adventure says.
Yeah, so there's different paths you can take in the story. And also, when we played it, I would create a story outside of the game. So I'd kind of like create a synopsis of what happened the previous adventure and add in our character personalities and things like that. And we'd also make choices based off of our character personality. So there's definitely some RPG elements. And I really like it because it's more strategic. And that's, I mean, like we talked about at the beginning, we both love strategy games. There's a lot of strategy and it's cooperative. So I really like that.
Well, there you go. Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait till we can get it to the table. So that's cool. So you said you're going to be opening up another batch of uh, beta testing or play testing. Somebody's listening, they're a teacher, they're involved somehow with students or kids. How can they go about helping, Dustin, or find out more about this great adventure you're on?
So they can go to worldsxp.com. There is a email list they can sign up for. That's to get information about the kit and also to receive our characters from our prototype. So our prototype has 20 different character styles with over 200 unique looks. So they can sign up for that. They'll receive the 20 different characters and start to think about maybe how they can apply these to their classroom to apply some sort of gaming elements to their learning environment if they're an after school program or just at home or in the classroom. And they can find us worldxp.com, and through that email list I will be notifying those on the list when we're looking for more play testers for the prototype. And then the final kit with will have a unique art, and that will be coming out on Kickstarter in August, early August, late July.
Okay, awesome. And so they can go ahead and participate that way as well. So that's awesome. And this is just for teachers then, or?
I think it's for anyone that has some sort of learning environment. I guess it's not necessarily just for teachers. We've created the kit to keep in mind that it will be used in classrooms and to make it available for learning environments with more than 10 students. But if you have less than that, it's definitely something you can use. You'll have a lot more characters to choose from with the the less amount of students you have. But yeah, it's definitely applicable to different learning environments as well.
Okay, awesome. And people want to find out more about your podcast that we talked about a little bit up front. How can they do that, Dustin?
I think anywhere they're listening to a podcast. So if they're listening to yours, they can find ours as well. Board Gaming with Education. Just search on any podcast platform.
And I think you guys have a website too, Board Gaming with Education, maybe, or?
Yeah, and that's boardgamewitheducation.com. And you can also find us on like Instagram and Twitter, BGE Games, I believe, or Board Gaming with Education, depending on which which social media platform. We're trying to do the whole Twitch and Discord thing, but there's only really one of us, me and my wife, and she does most of the behind the scenes stuff. So it's hard to manage all those social media platforms.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it can be quite burdensome, but yeah, I really like what you do. And are we no longer going to have to wait for breaks? Because a lot of times you go on break for a season or whatnot. Are you still going to continue, or what's the plan with the podcast?
Yeah, we're gonna try our best. So definitely no breaks mid-season. So we're in season 6 now, and every season will be 12 episodes plus 4 bonus episodes. So 1 bonus episode a month and 1 episode every week. So we may take some breaks between seasons, but we're moving right into season 6. We just came out with our first episode for season 6 would be May 3rd. So we're moving along.
Well, there you go. So that's good to hear. And like, if you give me the links, I'll make sure I leave everything in the show notes. And you already told everywhere to go, so they don't have to stalk you personally. But yeah, we don't want to keep you all night, but we really appreciate you coming on, getting geeky with Gamer Leap with us to talk all about it's a gamification kit, or what's the exact name for it, Dustin?
The name is Worlds XP.
Oh, just like the website. So there you go.
Right.
No problem. We really appreciate it, Dustin.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you again. It was a lot of fun.
No problem. Well, that was great sitting down with Dustin. Now I'm excited to see what's going on with that role-playing thing. If you're like me and you want to know more about it, make sure you head on over to worldsxp.com and sign up for their email list so you can find out more details about it and everything that's going on. Hopefully soon enough they'll be coming out with the Kickstarter, and I don't know if they're still taking play testers or whatnot, but it sounds like a pretty cool program. Now let's go with Batterina Leaf. Where are we going, Batterina Leaf?
Kickstarter Corner!
Ignite is a simple, mechanically themed card game with board game elements. The goal is to destroy your opponent's forge before they destroy yours. Each player is given a game board and a 30-card deck full of minions called a forge. The game plays similarly to other games in the genre. Cards have attack, health, and cost values, but the rules are less complicated and more fun, making it easier to start and harder to stop. The main mechanic of the game is Ignite. Of course, in this game, your bots will ignite, hopefully many, many times. How will they ignite? With these 2 dice. When your bot ignites, simply roll the Ignite dice to determine which target you hit and for how much. The damage corresponds to the card's Ignite values. This makes the game fun and chaotic, but fear not. To win, you must power up your bot's Ignite abilities with your other cards, the Forgelings. Forgelings are mischievous, trigger-happy, goblin-like creatures that live in your forge, and they work well with your bots. Forgelings upgrade your bots, help them ignite multiple times in random explosions, or provide powerful, game-changing effects. The Ignite decks are expertly designed to make every game uniquely exciting and crazy, and to make combining cards simple and fun. To add more players, just sit in a circle and your Ignite effects hit both neighboring players. So, what are you waiting for? Want to ignite your bots already? Help bring Ignite to life, and we'll provide you with a portal to the world of bots and forgelings. Not to be played within 10 feet of combustible materials. A game of crazy combos and epic explosions. Kickstarter coming June 2019.
If you liked any of the games we talked about in today's episode, make sure you check out their Kickstarter campaigns to show them and us a little love. Backing them goes a long way. Plus, make sure to stay up to date on all the giveaways we're doing over at thegiveawaygeek.com. There will be at least 2 to 3 new giveaways going live over there next week. It's our least favorite time as well as yours. So until next episode, make sure you go ahead and get geeky, stay geeky, and bring others in the geek fold by sharing our episodes with others, as well as keeping up with the giveaways we're doing over at thegiveawaygeek.com. Gamer Leaf out.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.